All right, so today's lesson is probably going to be one of the most important lessons in like this entire all the classes. It's going to be on functions. Now, if you work with Python, you might know what these are, but if you haven't, then it's okay because today we will be learning about that. Okay, again, this is our GitHub, which was what it contains just all the homework and stuff we do from each class. So I'm just going to go over the answers for this. Class 3. All right. Okay, so this is, if you guys remember from last class, this is going to be on header files. So if you forgot what happened, yeah, I can just pull it up. So just a quick recap on what header files are. Or this was, yeah. Okay, so basically what header files are is that they are a file that complements your main file. Like, assuming that, okay, let's say you wanted to define a function, but you don't want to do it in your main file. What you can do is you can have an additional file along with your main file, and you can add all the information there, and you can just call it into your main file So like there's not too much code in your main file. The information is just kind of stored elsewhere. So once the question is create a header file. Okay, I'll just delete this, and I'll just delete this. Okay. So it says create a header file. Okay, that's gonna be the first step. Remember for code for like the main file, you want to have a main.cpp, but for header files, it's gonna usually be I'll just name a header. It can really be anything. Anyone do a .h at the end. So make sure you have that .h. That is going to be really important. All right. And now holds the initialization of an integer variable with value 5. All right, so just a recap of the syntax. In your header file, you have to have this first line and the second line. Those are really important. You have to remember that you have to have hashtag if and def. So that's going to be the same for any header file. If and def. And then you want to see what you named your header file. So for me, I named the header file header.h. So what you have to write here is you have to do your name of the file, but it's all uppercase. And this dot right here is replaced with a underscore. Okay, so header underscore h. And then you just define it. So define, and then you write the exact same thing. All right. Now just to really establish that this like header file, it could really be named anything. Like if I named it header head, I can just name it head.h. And since I changed the name, I have to change this as well. It's head, all uppercase, and then h like this. And the question says holds the initialization of an integer variable with value of 5. Well, that's easy enough. Just create a variable, integer, and then variable. I'll set that to 5. And then, of course, at the end, you always gotta remember this end if, just at the end. And yeah, that is the header file. So now what you want to do is go back in your main file. And what you want to do is that you include head.h. Head.h. Well, I don't actually do not. Yeah, okay. So you want to make sure you have this hashtag here, and then so just like how you included this, you also want to include this. And then whatever you named it, I named it head.h, put that in quotation marks. Now you can use what's in here. So you include this, now you can use this. Even though it's not in the main file, you can still use that. So I'll just say and yeah, I mean, that's it. Like I can use the variable I got from here. Yeah, C5. See, my main file, this is really clean. I don't have anything in here. So I just put all the information in this edit file. I change it to like this, and I run it again. I did not have to change anything in my main file. And that is the first problem. Second problem, create a while loop which loops 50 times and then returns the sum of 5 added together 50 times. So immediately, you should be able to tell, like even before you do the question, what the right answer is going to be. The answer is going to be 5 added together 50 times. So that's 50 times 5. And that's just going to be 250. So already we know what the right answer should be. So we just got to code that up. I'm not going to delete the header file for now. Like, it's not really going to be useful. I'm not going to use it in this lesson. But I'll just leave it there. Create a while loop which loops 50 times. Okay. So remember, you can initialize the variable inside the while loop. Let's make it 50. I is greater than 0. Minus. Well, actually, oh, my bad. Actually, this actually only works for a for loop. So if I have a while loop here, you can't actually use this. But okay, if this was a for loop, then we could have used that. But the question specifies it will have to be a while loop. So instead, we have to declare outside. So if this was a for loop, then I could have done that. But it's a while loop, so I can't. So while I is greater than 0, let's also create a variable that says integer total. It's going to be set to 0 because the sum is 0 at first, but we're going to add 5 each time. So we're going to total plus or minus 5, and then I minus minus. See, what this does is that I is initially 50, and then we decrease I by 1 each time. And eventually this whole loop will play until I is equal to 0. I is no longer greater than 0, I is equal to 0, and total will have 50 times added 5. So total will add 5 50 times. So we can see our total. And that will be 250. See, 250. Create a for loop. Okay, see, now we can use the syntax I had before. Create a for loop to output the first 10 natural numbers. So we have it right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That should be easy enough. So for for loops, we can declare the variable. We don't have to declare outside. We can declare inside these brackets. Integer I equals 0. And then, oh, it will have to be 1. Okay, it starts with 1, ends with 10. So it starts with 1, and then this will continue until while I is less than or equal to 10. If it gets to 11, I is no longer less than or equal to 10, and we stop. And we increase I by 1 each time. And then we just output the number, output I. Now what you want to do, you have to notice that you also got to include these spaces though. Like these spaces between each number. So this will just be a space. Yeah. You got that space here, it should be working. And yeah, that matches exactly. Write a program which asks the user for a number and then loops that many times, printing out all natural numbers before that. You can use a for loop or a while loop. And now, okay, so we have the option of using either one. Now, since I already have a for loop here, why not just use it again? Like I already have this for loop here. I don't want to, like it'd be easier just to use this for loop. Okay, so asks the user for a number. Okay, let's create a number. We're just going to initialize this variable. We're not going to give it anything, and we're going to let the user cin. Remember, this cin means asks the user to input a number. So we're going to take that number in. Okay, now we got the number, and then we print all natural numbers before that. So 7, and then we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 till 7. So we go until I is less than or equal to the number. And the rest of the code pretty much is the same. I guess also since they want you to have the specific line here, we're going to have to copy and paste that. And let's just see out. Just to let the user know that's what we want to specify. We're going to print this out and say, okay, this is what we want you to do. And 7, okay, let me just input 7 then. Okay, I'm going to type in 7, and it should match exactly what's happening here. I've typed in 7. And yeah, that works. Okay. I'm just going to delete all this now. Okay. And that is just a recap from lesson 4. Now moving on to like the actual content. Okay. Okay, so before we get into the purpose, what functions are, I guess I'll explain what functions are a bit before we get to the purpose of what functions are. Functions are basically just, it's hard to explain it. They're basically just blocks of code which you can reuse multiple times. And so that ties into what I have here. Functions allow code reuse by allowing you to define a block of code once, and then you can reuse it how many times you want. You don't have to write that same code again. You just write that code once, and then you can use it how many times you want. And this also improves readability, because if you don't have a function, you're gonna have to write a bunch of code that you don't need. You could have just written that code once and then reused it. If you keep writing that same code, your code is gonna be really long. You're gonna have, if you want to find an error, you're gonna have to scroll through a bunch of lines of code. That is not what you want. So okay, let's give an example. So before I even tell you about the syntax of a function, I'll just kind of explain the logic on why it would be so bad if you like didn't have a function. Okay. Let's say int. Okay, let's say add. And then oh. Okay, so you don't have to know what exactly this means. Just say this allows me to calculate a plus b. Okay. And now assume that I had a bunch of numbers I want to calculate. I want to sum up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 10. And now this might be a bad example because like technically what you could do is just say, okay, if I want to have the sum of 1 plus 2, I just do 1 plus 2. But let's pretend that this add thing, this never existed. Let's just pretend you couldn't do this. Well, if you want to add a bunch of numbers together, why not just add 1, 2, right? You just call this function. Whatever the name is, you put this here. You add 1 and 2, okay? Add 3 and 4, or 4 and 5. Add 5 and 6. Like, you see how easy it is that I just said, okay, this is a function that allows me to add 2 numbers. Well, I can just reuse this so many times. Okay, now onto the syntax of a function. So what I already have here is the basic syntax of a function. So we have the function declaration. Now, what exactly is this? Function declaration tells the compiler about the file's name, return type, and parameters. And it is important that you place it before the main function. So all of you right now, if you're on Replit, then you will probably see, you will see that you have this. Like, this is just the basic things we learned in the first class. Whenever you have a function, you want to put it above that. You can't put it below. Like, if I put this below, and look what happened. I got the red squiggly lines. That tells me there's an error. Like, I can't put this all the way below. No, I have to put this above. Yeah, see? The function definition. So this is the declaration, like just the first line of function. And the function definition. So this tells you what you actually want the function to do. In this case, I want to add a plus b. And to call this function, you have to type exactly what the name is. So for example, if I had a function called, if this wasn't called add, I'd just put as, it's just random name. I have to, when I want to use this function, I have to say, I want to use this function, I have to call its name. I have to call its name like this. I have to use exactly that function's name in order to add it. All right. Just use the function's name. And okay, I guess there's something else that should be important to cover. We've actually been, you think if functions is new to you, which it may be, there's an important realization is that we've actually been working with functions all along. Like, since the very beginning, we've already actually been using functions. You may be asking why, like, if you didn't even know what functions were, how were you using it since the very beginning? Well, in the first class, we set up this template code. This was just a template code. Yeah, like this was just a template code. This is all we had at the beginning. Well, guess what? This is actually a function. This is actually a function itself. And it's just called the main function is because this is where you put all the things you want to do with your code. Like, you put it all in these curly braces, but at the end of the day, it is still a function. It technically is still a function. And inside this function, you can call other functions. So again, the example I had before, this is a function, and inside a function, I can call another function. Like, this is a function itself, and I'm calling this function above it. And even within this function, I can call another function. Let's say I have another function. Well, guess what? I have, in this function, I can call this function. I can call this function, and in this function, I can call another function. I can call another function. So you can just keep going on in like an infinite cycle. In this function, I can call this function. and I'll call this function. So I've called this function, and in this I can call another function and keep going on. So that's the really neat part about functions. Oh wait, so the return types of a function. Now, if you've worked with Python before, pretend this is Python. Well, yeah. Okay, let's just pretend this is Python. So define AB. If you've worked with Python before, you would know that to define a function, you just have to include this keyword called this keyword def, which stands for define, and that's all you have to do. Like that's for Python. That's all you have to do. But in C++, you actually got to be more strict with it. Before the function name, you do not put define. You don't have to. You have to instead put the return type. So okay, now what is returning exactly? Make a simple example. Integer return something. When you return something, let's return the value 5. When you return something, x equals return something. So I've called this function. And you've noticed I've called this function, okay, and then you notice I've set something equal to this function. I've put this function inside a variable. And now what value might x have? I called the function, I put it inside x. So what value will x have? Well, that depends on what's in this function. In this function, I said return 5. Return 5. So read something or return something. This what I just put there will be 5. It returned 5. So x will be 5 now. That's how returning works. And you have to specify the return type. You've noticed that I'm returning 5. That is integer, right? Well, you have to make, even though like it's pretty obvious, like this is obviously an integer, C++ wants you to explicitly type right here before the function name, what function is this? Like what will be returned? Will an integer will be returned? Okay, this is an integer, so I'll have to say an integer will be returned. If I say a string or something, well, 5, that's not a string. I'm saying, okay, a string is going to be returned, but then I'm returning an integer. You see there's going to be an error. There's going to be like this red squiggly line. That's how you know that you messed up, because you specified that you would be returning a string, but then you just return something else, not a string. So let me just return a string. Hello. Oh, split that up. And see, it works fine now. Yeah, I specified that I would be returning a string. I did return it. However, you will notice I got an error here, because I said integer x would be equal to return something. Now return something won't be 5 anymore. It'll be hello. And hello is not an integer. Hello is not an integer. I have to say string x. See, now that works. And of course, if you've learned about other data types, you will know that these are the basic ones. We got, I think you might, if you've attended the previous classes, then you will know integer, and just basically because that's just an integer. That's just like a normal number with no decimals. However, there is a certain limit that you can go up to. If a number is too big, then you might have to use long, but we won't talk about that right now for this class. So integer, this is for numbers with no decimal. Float and double, you use these if you want to return something that will have decimals. Char, if you want to return a character. A bool, that you only use this if you want to return true or false. So if you're going to return true or you're going to return false, then you have to use bool. And now void, if the function does not return a value. So you can kind of see the void kind of means nothing, right? So that kind of makes sense that it would be called void. It does not return a value. So I'll just make an example for all of these. So we already did the integer. Let's do float. let's combine float and double because they are pretty similar. Float, okay. So, and make sure if you want to store the function inside a variable that if you want to, whatever you return, well, obviously x is going to also have to be that. If you're going to return a float, then obviously if you're going to store an x, then x will have to have the float as well, right? And, so this is for decimals. So 3.14. Or if you want to double, which is similar to a float, also with decimals, 3.14. The character, okay, let's do char. Let's return the character A. And of course, remember, if you change this, you also want to change this. Character A. So let's return A. And now bool returns okay, so bool. And now let's say we want to return true. Now x will be true. X will have the value true. Or if it is false, now x will have the value false. That's all. That's just the entire idea, is that whatever you want to return, what will this be? Will this be a char, an integer, a float, a bool? Well, you have to specify that in here. And whatever value you're going to store that into in the main function, you also want to have the same thing. These should be matching. And now here's the neat thing about C++. Like pretty much like all other coding languages, C++ already has some built-in functions. So you don't have to create some of these functions by yourself. C++ already has some pretty useful ones. And I said before, built-in functions in the standard library. And I think maybe the most popular one is the CMath. Now you want to include that, CMath. So if you're following along or if you're just watching, make sure you include. We'll just include this at the top. So now I have access to all these built-in functions. What are these functions, you might ask? Well, we have square root, we have power, we have absolute, we have ceil, we have floor, we have sign. And I'll just demonstrate a few of these. So what does square root do? Let's say we have integer x equals 5. That's pretty basic. And now we want the square root of 5. And the square root of 5, that is probably going to be something around 2.2 maybe. But we don't know for sure. So we just do square root of 5. We didn't have to define this out. We didn't have to we didn't have to do double square root or anything like that. It was already in here, so we are fine with that. And now let's see what the actual value is going to be. Oh, unused variable x. Oh, I suppose. Okay, I said 2.2. It was 2.2, but it was more precise than that. It was 2.23, all these decimals. So as you can see, the square root function that did everything for us. We have the power. Now, if you've done math class, 2 to the power of 2. 2 to the power of 2 means 2 times 2, like 2 times itself twice. What's going to be 2 times 2 will be 4. So 2 times itself. What you have to multiply 2 times. So 2 and then 2 times 2, that's going to be 4. And now we could easily just do that in our head, but if it was for a more complicated thing, then power might be useful. So power has 2 parameters. Firstly, you want to say, what is this? So there's 2 numbers here. There's the first one that comes before it and the second one. The first one is 2, and the second one is 2. And what that basically is going to do, it's going to raise 2 to the power of 2, which, as we established, is 4. Well, I don't even need to do 2. Since x is 2, I can just put x here. And now it should just give me 4. 4. And now the absolute value. Absolute value. Now, again, in math class, what absolute value is? Absolute value is the number without the negative sign. Or it's going to be the same if it is positive. So let's say we have x equals 5 and we have y equals negative 5. Well, absolute value is a number without the negative sign. 5, that doesn't have a negative sign, so the absolute value of 5 is just going to be 5. It doesn't have a negative sign, nothing changes. For y, it's the number without the negative sign. We just exclude this negative sign, and it's going to be 5. So both x and y are going to be 5. And to do that, you have to put abs, x, an absolute value of both, as I said before, should be 5. See, we have 2 5s here. So this 5 and the 5. Okay. Now we have seal and we have floor. I won't talk about sign because that may be a bit too advanced, but we have seal and we have floor. So what seal does? Seal raises a number to the next highest integer. So we have 2.2. Oh, we have to put that as a double because there's a decimal. We cannot use int for that. And now seal x. It's 4. That's what seal does. You can think of seal as kind of sealing. It's gonna take in a double, like something with a decimal, and it's gonna raise that up until you actually reach an integer. So even though 3.2 is close to the 3, you have to raise it to the next highest integer. So 3 is not higher than 3.2. The next highest integer is 4. And now, but you have floor also. Floor raises lowers a number to the next lowest integer. So it kind of does the opposite of this. So it's going to raise it to the next lowest integer, which in this case is going to be 3. So when I run it, it should do 4 and then 3. Okay. We do have some more functions here. These are just the most popular ones. I think CMath, definitely that is popular. CC type, this is less popular, but I think it is generally still used. So CC type, let's copy and paste that. And by the way, if you need the GitHub link, I'll just paste it in chat. Anyhow, CC type. You're gonna include, just as we did the include CMath, well, you're gonna include CC type. And now you have 2 functions, and we got is alpha. And what is alpha does, these are just some of the most used functions. Is alpha checks if something is a letter. So let's say you have something like chart C equals C. You have the character C. Well, is alpha checks if this is a letter, and C is a letter. So is alpha C. If is alpha C. If C is a letter, which it is, print. I'll say letter found. And also remember, for if statements, you have to have brackets around the condition, like this. And now let's run it. Letter found. I found a letter. Well, let's say C isn't a letter. Let's say C is actually equal to, C is actually 6. 6, that is not part of the English alphabet. That is not happen. So if I run it, nothing happened. I did not find a letter because 6 is not a letter. And we got 2 upper, so that converts something to uppercase. And this only works for letters. You cannot, remember, you can't convert 6 to an uppercase. Like, that doesn't make sense. We have C. Okay, we make sure C is a letter. Okay, if it is a letter, let's convert to upper. So you say 2 upper, and then C. Now, C originally was lowercase c, now it's going to be uppercase C. Oh, that is converted to uppercase. That is very... Oh, I think I might have had to uppercase. 2 upper. Okay, so now uppercase C. Now, if you're wondering what happened there, like why did I get the number 67, that is something a bit more advanced. That has something to do with like the ASCII table, which you do not need to know. It's just something a bit more advanced. So you gotta make sure that you gotta convert. So this converts it to an uppercase, but you can't just do this because what will actually happen is that it will convert it to a number because, again, this is more advanced stuff. Every character actually has a number associated with it. Like the number associated with the large uppercase C, that is 67. That's just the way it is. So, and then C++ convert that to an integer because I didn't specify that I wanted it to display in its character form. Hopefully that makes sense. Now we have a practice, but before we go over that, does anyone have any questions? Just want to make sure that everything was understood, or like if anyone is like a bit uncertain about anything, feel free to speak up. Okay, I guess we do not have any questions. So now I will give you guys some time to practice this. Write a function that adds 2 numbers, x and y, and call it into the main function. So basically, I don't want you to just do this. Like, even though you can technically do this, you can do x equals 5, and then y equals 6 or 7. And then you see out x plus y and l. Like, you could do that. That'd be really easy to do, but for the purposes of this, just call it into, just make a function to do that, and then call it in the main function as I showed before. So that's just going to be the first practice problem. And I will give you guys around 3 or 4 minutes to do that. And yeah, I'll just give you guys a bit of time to do that. Okay, for last class lessons, I recorded a short video. We actually forgot to record last class's like entire class meeting. So after the class, I just made like a short summary of what exactly happened. I can send you the link. Just give me a sec. And again, most of our class recordings should be on the GitHub page. So if you want to check that out, then feel free. Um, all right, here is the link for the last class, which was lesson 4. That was on just header files, for loops, while loops, all that. Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah, that was the recording. And now I'll go back to, let's go back to the practice problem page. I'll be giving you guys like 1 more minute to do this. If you've done this, just let me know so I can kind of like just get an understanding of where everyone is at. That would be much appreciated. So if anyone is done, you can just type done in the chat, or I'll go over the answers soon if you're having some difficulties. Okay, I'm assuming no one has done it yet, so I can just go over the answer real quick because we do have a limited amount of time. So again, let's go over the answers. So create a function that adds two numbers, x and y. X and y could be anything. So here I already have x equals to 5 and y equals to 6. So write a function that adds two numbers together. So I'm going to return an integer because 5 and 6 can be 11. So I'm going to return an integer. And let's call a function adding two numbers. And now inside the function, you also want to include the parameters. So these are the numbers you want to use in your function, and you have to make sure to specify the type. And this just generally applies to C++. Like whenever you mention a variable, you always want to put the type. What type is it? So integer x equals 5 and y equals 6. So these two are integers. Both of them are integers. So, and now we're going to return x plus y. So when you just mention them just like this, then you don't have to put int. But usually when you put it inside these brackets, then you will need to specify the type. So I'm just going to return x plus y. Like this is going to be an integer, and this should give me 11. So I passed in these two numbers. I put x and y in these brackets. So x, that's 5. So this became 5. Y, that's 6. This became 6. So 5 plus 6. 5 plus 6, that will give me 11. And I think we should just skip over this challenge problem. This may be a bit too difficult now that I think about it. And now we're going to talk about types of parameters. So as I mentioned before, when you pass in a value, when I passed in x and I passed in y into this, that's called passing in. When you put variables inside these brackets for you to use. I put x and y in here, so now I can use x and y in here. I can just use x and y in here now, and I returned x plus y, which was 11. Pass by value, and this does not actually. Okay, so when you pass in by value like this, I passed in the value of x and y into here. It doesn't actually change the parameter's value. It makes a copy. That's what happens actually. So I passed in x and I passed in y in here. Now let's just say I changed it x to. Oh, okay, no, that's a bit too extreme. Let's say I changed x to this. I changed it to some randomly large number. And then, all right, let's just put it as, yes, void. Okay, void isn't something I've really talked about, but void basically is when you want to do something, but you don't want to return anything. In this case, I'm just modifying the value of x. I don't want to return anything. Like, oh, not exactly sure what happened there. Let me just refresh the page. Okay. So I can just put that as void. Void means I don't want to return anything. I just want to modify something. I don't want to like return anything. I'm not even gonna, yeah, I'm just not gonna return anything. Changing. So I just changed the value of x. And I'm gonna call the function. I'm gonna say, okay, I'm gonna pass an x and y. I'm gonna pass 5, 6, and then I'm gonna change x to this. Okay, now let me just print out x. Now, let's just see what happens. Well, guess what? This might be different from what you were expecting. I called the function, and I just changed the x. So, but when I print x, x is not this, it's still 5. And that's what happens. When you pass in x and y like this, and you do, what actually happens is that C++ automatically makes a copy of these variables. It makes a copy of x, and it makes a copy of y. So when you change x, you're not changing the actual x. The original x, that is not changed. You made a copy of it in the function, and you changed that copy. And then you did nothing with that copy. You just changed the copy. Okay, that doesn't really matter. And now when you call x, you're calling the real value of x. Like the original x, you didn't change the original x, you changed a mere copy of it. So nothing's going to happen. It's still going to be 5. You changed the copy. And now, what if you actually want to actually change the original one? You don't want to change the stupid copy. Like, you actually want to change the real deal. Well, what you want to do is you pass a reference to the actual parameter. So what this means is that after the int, you want to include this and symbol. And this and symbol means that you pass by reference, which means that you are passing in the original variable. You're not changing a copy anymore. You're changing the original variable. Let's do this. I'm saying, okay, I'm not going to change the copy anymore. I'm actually going to change the real thing. And now I change the real thing to 10,000. Now, let's see what happens. See, I changed the real thing. I didn't change a copy anymore. I included this symbol, that specific symbol. Make sure you remember that. to change the original value. And now I didn't change the copy, I changed the real thing. So when I print it out, I do get 10,000. More practice. I may just leave this for homework since class will be ending soon. I guess just to like wrap things up, does anyone have any questions about any of the things we learned today? Does anyone like want to give me like a quick recap of a topic like they are unsure about? Just feel free to let me know. Or I guess if you're good, just type like good in chat just to let me know that you are understanding. And always, again, if you are still unsure about something after class, you can always rewatch the video. We'll be posting that on our GitHub, so you can just watch all the previous classes. Yeah, so does anyone have any questions? Or I guess if like some feedback on if I did go too slowly in this class or if I went just the right pace, you can type that in chat just with some feedback so I can improve in the future. And as well, like the other instructors can improve as well, just to let us know if we are teaching too fast or if we are teaching too slow. Okay, thank you for the feedback. Again, make sure if you do wanna rewatch the video, again, GitHub link. I paste that in chat. I can paste it again. It's completely up to you if you want to like check out GitHub or anything like that. But if you do want to just practice it, or see the practice lessons, homework, recordings, all that stuff, again, there is a link. Make sure to save that. But it is 2 p.m., so I think you guys are free to go if you do not have anything else. There's the class 5. Yeah, I don't think I'll have to talk to the other instructors about adding that video. I think we will be adding that shortly. Don't worry. Just make sure to check up on that. Maybe in a few hours, we will have that added. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, the video will be uploaded today. So if you guys don't have any questions, you can leave. Thank you for attending this class. You can just send an email if you wanna. Just send an email to Code Unity. If you have any inquiries, anything like that, 2024 Gmail. I believe that is our Gmail. So if you have any questions, just make sure to my email. Send us questions. We will be happy to answer that in our free time. And that is the end of class. So no reply. I will. Okay. I'll make sure to reply today. I'm sorry about the delay, but I will be sure to reply today. So yeah. And the call is about to end. So that will be the end for today. Yeah, will be the end. So have a good day, I guess, everyone.